You want to know what it really takes to be successful? You are not going to want to miss today's conversation with Paul Tufts as he shares the ups, the downs, and the rebound right back up to success. Tune in. Hello and welcome to the Wealthy Entrepreneur Podcast. This is a space where Eddie and I get real on everything health, wealth, and relationships and share the down and dirty details on how we went from working 12-hour days and multiple jobs to six-figure months working our famous 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. The Wealthy Entrepreneur is our real talk, the unedited version of us, sharing the struggles, the successes, and tips and tricks on how we did it, how we created wealth. So, if you like real, you want to be motivated, and you want to leave a podcast with simple things you can implement into your life, hit subscribe and listen in as we tell our story and the stories of others living their wealthiest lives. Here we go.
Yes. Eddie and I are really excited to have this opportunity to sit down with Paul Tufts today.
Yes, Paul
is the, will I say, CEO, owner, mastermind of Juice Digital?
Yeah, I guess you could say that pretty much. I don't really have a lot of titles for that, but just a captain of the ship, I guess.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect title right there.
Yes, and fitting that you're on a ship or a boat today.
Well, yeah, this is my office now. I've done the routine of having the offices downtown and so forth, and I figured this year, once they came out with the Starlink internet, I just put it on the boat, and it really was a game changer. So now I can literally a beautiful office, and it's nice and comfortable. Air is fresh, and I don't have to book any rooms.
And you weren't always there, right? You weren't always, like you said, you've done the downtown, you've done the multiple things, but you weren't always in a position to have flexibility, internet accessibility aside. You weren't always in a position to be able to work powerfully or serve your clients from any location.
No, I mean, that's pretty much been in the last 4 or 5 years. That's changed considerably, and certainly the pandemic changed the whole concept of working from home. But prior to that, yeah, I mean, most people, I'd be working out of a coffee shop trying to get internet for 45 minutes before the kids get out, that type of thing. Always looking for the Wi-Fi signals. But yeah, now it's much more comfortable, that's for sure.
Being able to work anywhere, like even in your boat. How many people would love to be working on the water, anywhere in the world, do business as usual for you.
Yeah.
Well, that's always been my vision, is to be able to be comfortable doing business. I've had the other traditional operations where you have a manufacturing facility and 10 or 20 employees, and paying a ton of money and expenses every month, and then just hoping that there's something left over at the end of the month for you. And like a lot of businesses, earning anywhere from 5 to 10%, if you're lucky.
You're lucky,
right? Because most businesses are just exchanging time for money, and there's not much left over at the end of the day. And just inordinate risk to your capital as well. Anything can go south, and I think people found that out pretty fast in the last few years.
And when margins are so small, like you've said, if something goes south, if there's price increases at other areas and you don't have the flexibility to pivot, then again, it's eating your capital, it's eating your net profits, and you're stuck carrying the bag and expenses. But maybe actually I'll just pause there, because I think it's important to let everybody in on the background a little bit about what you do, because it's like, oh, okay, he's working on a boat.
Lucky guy.
I'd love to hear.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the digital marketing business now this is coming on to my 10th year, and I sort of came across this business almost by default. I'd had a couple of other businesses, and one was in the yachting industry, where we had a business that was teak decks for super yachts, which was a very fun business. Got to travel a lot, got to see the world, got to be around a lot of big, major, massive boats, and sort of introduced to a lifestyle that I really enjoyed all the trappings of, although I couldn't afford any of it, but was in it. And that business, it seriously went south around 2012, 2010, when a lot of the problems happened. And my theory at the time was that I would just wait it out, and as everybody else went out of business, I would emerge out of it a couple of years later. But unfortunately, I got caught in the quicksand, and it took me down to the point where I really ended up having to do personal bankruptcy, and it was a pretty devastating time, and just trying to figure out, okay, well, what do you do? How do you reshape your life in your early 50s? it's not an easy thing to do. So
No.
I had to really sit there and, the first thing was kind of serious, like, well, okay, well, how do I have money for my family? How do I get groceries? How do I, pay the mortgage type of thing? So, my attitude's always been the harder you work, the luckier you get. So I just took a job. It was a terrible job, just a horrible job, working at a car dealership.
Yeah.
I kept selling 4 cars my first week or first 2 weeks. And then by the time I got a month into it, it was almost impossible to walk into the dealership. I hated it so bad. But I did stick it out. I mean, you've got to do things. A lot of times in business, it's not always just for fun, but you just got to be willing to do what other people aren't willing to do. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And just sharing that from the outside looking in, when people see what you've built, it's like, oh, this guy did teak flooring for luxury yachts. Cool. Now he's got his own business that he's sitting on a boat. But often we aren't seeing what happens in the background, right? Those things that people are doing differently than somebody else to make things happen. Yeah. And you have all of the same, I say there's not much difference between the word excuse and a reason. A lot of people use, I've got a family, I can't do certain things as their excuse, where you looked at it that moment, that's your reason.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, once the bankruptcy happened, we did something radical. The whole family, we moved to Spain. And my son was out of high school in grade 11. And then my wife went there with me. And, we didn't speak English. We didn't really know anybody, but we just wanted to go and experience a different part of the world. So that enabled us to do it. But a lot of it started with the vision. I had a vision at the time of a global portable business. And, to do that, I thought, okay, well, I'll lean on network marketing, which I'd had some success in the past. But then I got going on that and it just didn't happen. Then I almost stumbled across the digital marketing. I'd never heard of SEO or any of these terms before. It was all brand information, but I started following some people on YouTube and I got excited about it. I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And it was just more or less having a vision of what you wanted your life to be. And then it's not just the vision, but what are you prepared to do to get it? How hard are you prepared to work to chase that down? And this is where I understood the value of coaching, because I saw people that were getting the results that I wanted. And I thought to myself, what, am I going to be an idiot? Am I going to try to recreate the wheel myself? Or am I just going to, pay them what I need to pay in order to lay out a roadmap that I can follow and get what I need to get in order to be successful? And so when I started, it was a $10,000 coaching course, $10,000 that I didn't have. I was paying $1,000 a month at a time when I wasn't even making $2,000 per month.
Yeah.
So, everything that my coaches said to me, I mean, I would listen to it over and over and over again. I'd be on every webinar, every phone call, everything possible. And then over time, that information started to go into my head in a deeper way. And I had some mentors that I could lean on when a problem came up, that I could work through them. And then as the years went by, first year I managed to break even. And then by the time I got into my third or fourth year, things started to get more comfortable. And my vision was to be $1 million solopreneur. And at the time, it seemed like a pretty crazy concept.
Well, when you say too, right, it's like you're coming out of this place where the industry you knew went bankrupt, right? And then going into, it's like having this vision and global portable business. And you're thinking, again, that's something that you're going to teach others, but it's really in hindsight what you're able to create for yourself.
Yeah.
But taking those steps, there's this saying that I myself and others, like a couple times a month for the last 5 to 10 years probably, but its opportunity is missed by most because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. It looks like all of those things, but it looks like understanding the vision, right? And like you said, it's doing the things that other people are not willing to do. And we think that there's this like someone else is luckier or somebody else is, smarter, already had the money. I don't believe there's one person who's experiencing a certain success. Yeah. I mean, we're not talking born into it or anything here, but that has a certain success without having the failures.
No. I mean, you got to have failures to know what it can be like. And, when you have failures, especially when you have a couple of failures and all of a sudden you realize that, there's no option but to be successful, so you're really wasting a lot of time thinking, oh, what if this doesn't work? The whole mindset is about, I need to make this work, or how is it going to work? So 100% of your mental capacity is towards making it work rather than 50%, oh, well, maybe it'll work, and 50%, well, maybe it won't. If you split the deck like that, then you're probably going to get a bad result. But
well, and you're always going to weigh heavier. There's no 50%. You're going to weigh heavier because negativity or fear is always going to weigh heavier, right?
Yeah, of course. It's like, you know, when the Vikings first went to England and they landed on the shores and they burned the boats. That's the type of thing where you have to win in order to succeed. There is just no backwards motion on that. So really, it is the harder you work, the luckier you get. But you've got to have that. You've got to have the ability to employ yourself. But the one thing that I do find that people make mistakes of in business is they think that they have to be the ones to write it or to come up with the thinking, okay, this is the business. I've got to be the creator of my business. And the reality is that there's so many businesses out there which have openings and they just need more people. Or if you can just learn that trade, then there's business there for you to share. You know, so you just have to really find someone that's having success and you want to have their success, you just go follow their roadmap. It's not that hard. Most of digital marketing is just following what people are already doing on Google.
Yeah. And that's what you've said, right? It's like, there's people already having success. And, you know, even when speaking with our own kids right now, because it's not really something that's taught in the background, we talk about the difference between building a life and building a lifestyle, right? And often we follow this path or this in the box model of building this life, but we're never experiencing the lifestyle that we want to, you know, for ourselves, for our families. And there's a heaviness in that. And you know, looking at all of the steps along the way for you, it's all really been with this mindset, this connection to a lifestyle. You said I had a vision, right? Yeah. I had a vision of how I wanted to live. There's the vast majority are waiting to see what changes. Where I've got like great respect is I'm not waiting to see what changes. Yeah, I'm going to jump in and do this, you know, car dealership job, but that's not my end game. I'm not staying there now because I'm fearful. I still have the vision. And this is just this little thing I need to do right now while I'm still creating the vision. Yeah. And then, like you said, putting $10,000 into coaching where it's like, there's nothing from the outside looking in made sense about that at that moment.
I think a lot of people make the mistake. They look at something and they look at it and it seems simple. I think it's easy. But it's maybe simple, but it's in most cases, it's not easy, is by the ability to employ yourself. That's where most people fall apart. They just, you know, they're used to having a boss to tell them to do. So when they start working from home, they start getting lazy. They, you know, show up at their desk in their pajamas at 11 in the morning and get distracted by what's on the TV and that kind of thing. I mean, unless you have the ability to employ yourself and you treat yourself as an employee and you're the boss and the employee. Okay, what did you do today? What results are you getting? Are you moving towards your goal? Yes or no? Unless you can do that, you're just never going to have success. So in order to get better at employing yourself, you need to have better mentors, better coaches, and people that will say to you, hey, you know, did you actually do anything yesterday? Who are you fooling? Like, are you fooling yourself? Because it's pretty easy to do. You have to be diligent and you have to do it. So yeah, sure. It looks easy, like I'm sitting on a boat, maybe not working as hard as I used to do, but I did work extremely hard for a long time. And now I just know that, you know, I don't want to do 40, 50 hours a week. I don't want to travel. Not travel for business, but you know what I mean? I just want to be able to just refine the kind of work that I do and take it down to a 4-day week, that kind of thing, and then work in the environment that I want to work. So for me, and certainly for my family, you know, that means by being able to work in a beautiful place, be it here in Vancouver, or we will be going back to Spain probably 2 months from now. And, you know, even that kind of stuff, it seems daunting going to a different country or trying to start another business. But if you just throw yourself in it, you know, you figure it out along the way. And it's not hard.
Well, and you said too, it's like you're refining now, and you're in a position to refine again because you can't refine something that you haven't done, right? Or something that you're not experiencing. So being able to take that refine and then being able to, it's like those traits that you have built or again, what leads you into experiencing successes in other areas. There's a greater understanding. It's taking the learnings of, the coaching that you've had, it's implementing it, and then refining those things in your own business and how you want to experience business, how you want to experience life. I love, because everyone who follows Wealthy Entrepreneur knows it's all about building a business and creating lifestyle, right? It's that you can have this. And I think we're in one of these unique periods of time where we are starting to, there's a great handful of people that know this, but there's more people saying, hey, like, I actually want to experience life. We have seen a transition since 2020 that's been quite powerful. And what we see in the background is a lot of people, though, who want different, who aren't stepping into the different. It's like this hurry, like this wait for something amazing to happen to me. What would you say to some of those people?
Well, I think the timing right now to do this type of lifestyle business is perfect, because the roadmap's been laid out over the last 2 years. Prior 3-4 years ago, the thought of working from home was just insane. Like, people just didn't even think about it unless you just didn't do it. It wasn't something that people discussed. If you had a company, you wouldn't think of doing it, but now people can. So, I think in some ways the lifestyle, the working from home, is a little bit overrated. You want to sort of have a place that you can work that's comfortable, that is within your boundaries. That if you need to take a day off, if you need to go to the doctor, if you need to spend some time with your family, you can just do it. You don't have to ask other people. So it's out there. The roadmap is crystal clear to do. It's incredibly attainable. And there are so many different businesses that people can get into now, businesses that weren't even here 2-3 years ago. I think about the digital marketing business, just the chat GPT stuff. That is a game changer. That's just absolutely open up. How can people predict what job can be there a year from now, or what business can be there from now? Because they don't even know. You have to go create it. You could be a chat GPT, write prompts, or be a liaison between the AI and humans. There's I don't know, there's a million things out there.
So let me ask you a question. So with all that being said, where do you picture yourself in the next 3 years? Where do you picture your business going to in like the next few years? Because I love how it's like, how you manifest, you were actually manifesting all this, like, and then now you're up to this level where everybody, I know all my groups of friends would love to be in your position, like to be able to work anywhere, like anywhere in the world, and go to Spain when it's cold in Vancouver. Like,
well, I'm starting to work with family now, to take over a lot of the chores that I might have had to do, which frees up time. So I'm trying to do stuff that's just high level important stuff, things that are the intersections of profits, more or less, just not wasting time on things that don't matter, so that I could take myself down to, I've had periods where I've done the 4 day a week thing, but then sometimes it gets busier too, and you're up to 8-hour days, maybe 5 days a week for periods as well. So it depends on the nature of the business and the way it's running. But I would like to be 2 or 3 years from now, working maybe 10-15 hours a week, not in the business, but on the business, just making sure that it's going smoothly and the customers are happy and there's a new acquisition of customers, and that the business is profitable more than that, because I think that's a mistake a lot of people make. They spend too much time working on the top line of the business, not on the bottom line of the business. And you could have a $10 million business that doesn't make you any money.
It's so funny. I was on with a client conversation. It's like, it's finding that sweet spot between what you're selling and your profit margin, right? And it's understanding that.
It's beyond critical. And I see that's probably the number one mistake I see people make in business, is they think that in order to get more clients, they've got to drop their prices. All of a sudden they've got more business. It's like the vendor that sells to Costco, right? And then they go out of business because, sure, they're selling big volumes, but there's not enough gross profit.
There's nothing there.
They can't even, there's nothing for them. And then, that's it. So I think it's really important to be super profitable, but how can you be profitable without knowing those that are leaders in an industry that can teach you, okay, this is what worked for me? How would you ever know that information unless you had proper coaching? You just wouldn't do it. If you think you're going to go it on your own, you know, good luck with that. It's
And I
just not
think,
gonna happen.
yeah. And with what you shared there, what came to me, which I speak to quite often, is there has been, you know, these industry standard way of doing things that have been literally since like the 70s, even probably earlier than that. And so these industry standard way of doing things, even around pricing structure, how you package things, have been going for this many years that people are trapped in that. And then they wonder where these, you know, the top 2% in an industry, how they're succeeding. I'll tell you, they're outside of that industry standard way of doing things.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they're charging a premium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charging a premium for the service, because anything that's any good, you know, people will buy it because they think it's expensive. Now that's, I'm not saying that my prices are inflated for that reason, not at all. But in order to get something of value, you're gonna have to pay something, you're gonna have to pay a premium. If you want something dirt cheap, certainly in digital marketing, well, go to Fiverr and, you know, have at it, you know, good luck with that and see how far you get. But there's a lot of other ways to do business that, you know, you're not going to know what it is unless somebody's laying it out for you and saying, okay, look, if something costs you $1, you got to charge $4 or $5 for that, right? All the way along through. You've got to be focusing on what is the gross profit and what is the net profit, because that's the determining factor on what your lifestyle is ultimately going to be. You can create a pretty good business even on a couple $100,000 per year if you're just consulting without costs. But if you're doing 200,000 a year in business and you're, you know, painting cars for a living, well, there's nothing left over for you, right?
Actually, I'm going to circle back to something we were speaking to just a few minutes ago, just about how we've had this transition and the abilities for people to work at home now, right? The abilities of people to have flexibility in where they're located. But I think what's as important as the setup for people to be able to be flexible in where they work is the client or customer's ability to recognize that, or to be embracing the fact that they can work with people in untraditional settings.
I mean, I think at this stage of the game, most people could probably get rid of their phone number, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to talk on the phone anymore. If somebody wants you to come and see them, it's almost laughable. What? You want me to come by your office?
I know.
Come on. You gotta be joking, right? Nobody has to go anywhere anymore. So
true.
if you want to work in Bali or if you want to work in Brazil, you can do it. Now, that being said, you're probably going to have to adjust your time zone. You know, maybe you got to get up earlier. Maybe you got to get up later. I mean, sometimes working from Spain, you know, you might start work at noon and then work till 8, but that's covers off the morning here in Vancouver. So how hard is that? That's not too difficult. In Spain, people work till 8 o'clock every day anyway. And the word Zoom 4 years ago used to be an expression of something going by fast, right? You know, and now it's just part of the vernacular. I mean, it's just so common just to be able to get on a call and express yourself and with a client, and everything is digital now. Everything is a tool. Everything can be sent to somebody else through their phone. I mean, the tools we have at our disposal to create the lifestyles of our choice are really at an unparalleled time in history, I believe.
Absolutely are. And again, the fact also that the clientele now, the customer base, is also open to receiving how the entrepreneurs or the businesses are structured. It's really an unparalleled time, like you said, and that's so amazing. And where, you know, we constantly come from and what we're doing and why your story is so inspiring and why we're so thankful you're to share it is just that it's a constant evolution. And maybe somebody who's stuck in a corporate job but has always had this idea, maybe they've got their own business and they constantly feel like they're that person that's always struggling or can't quite get to that profit margin or flexibility of time that allows them. It's the value of, you know, leaning into those who have gone before you. It's knowing, you know, the space, or I often say it's not necessarily even the actual industry, but they're experiencing a lifestyle, they're experiencing a way of living, a way of growing a business that's aligned with you. The value of investing in that, the value of stepping in, like, holy smokes, we've got some incredibly talented people all over the world who are trapped in, you know, we can go through the whole nonsense belief systems and all that good stuff. It's all real, but are trapped there. And sometimes I think it's just one person's voice or podcast or conversation that can, like, just take the step.
Yes.
Yeah, people have got to leap out in faith. They've
Yeah.
got to do something different. If what they're doing now isn't working, then they've just got to either break it or move on.
Yeah.
The longer you stay in it, then the harder it is to leave. So, you've got to have a vision for something beyond what you're currently doing. And for a lot of these roles that are available today, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm just speaking from the digital side of business. When you're behind a computer or something like that, it's the great equalizer, because it doesn't really matter if you're 80 years old or 12. It doesn't really matter where you're from, how much you're making, what your education is. It's what can you do now? What skill can you learn today that is valuable now? And and how can you monetize it so that it's not in exchange for your time? It's you're exchanging for a result. So what is the value of the result? I mean, for me, there's a value for traffic to a website in Google.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to. So there's lots of other intersection points out there in any type of business where people need and are willing to pay for more of an improvement. Even in digital marketing, like if you can improve somebody's conversions, right? That somebody clicks on a website and then 50% of them leave. Well, what if 50% of those that left stayed? What's the value of that? So what if you could sit there and figure out, well, how can I make people stick around longer on a website? Oh, I know, somebody's already done that. I'll just learn that skill and I'll apply it. So there's a myriad of businesses out there, not just in digital, but in services and other things that people can learn, but they're going to need a proper coach and a roadmap and a vision to make that happen.
That's awesome.
And I love that. And I think a question I would leave a lot of people with is also, it's not what it's costing you to invest in something, it's what it's costing you not to.
Yeah, well, I mean, what it's costing you not to is probably a lot of disappointment. And as you find out fast, I guess maybe I'm getting older, is that the years go by quicker. And but that doesn't mean that if you're 45 years old that you're trapped in a job that you hate and you can barely sleep because you've got visions of this boss or this coworker that you detest, and that you think that you can never leave it. And sometimes you've just got to make that move to something else, and you can never make the move unless you walk from one stone in a creek to the other stone. You can't just keep your legs split on all the stones crossing the street. You've got to cross the stream. You've got to make the move. And that's where I think one of the things in business that I find a lot of entrepreneurs have with a lot of extreme athletes is that they're brave. They believe in themselves and they're willing to make a move. And a lot of times they believe in themselves and other people that maybe don't believe in them. Right. So you've got it. And if that's the case, if maybe your self-worth isn't where it needs to be, then maybe you've got to spend time working on that. Maybe you've got to work on yourself even more. But there's a lot of areas
it's taking this step. It's like this step, because many people, you think, well, I'm just not doing anything. You are either moving forward or back. There's no such thing as stagnancy. You're forward or back. So if you're not moving forward, you may not see the back, but it's moving.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, life is like the current. It's like the tide. It's either coming in or it's coming out. Right. And you can sit there in one place, but your boat is still moving in the current. So your life is still moving in the current. Maybe
just might not be the direction you want to go.
No, and there's so many great things out there that people can do. Like if you want to do something, there's lots of places you can go online to find out how you can refine what's best for you. There's so many opportunities on Amazon or in any of the digital marketing platforms to be a voice for something. I mean, this isn't going to go away. There's always going to be new positions that you can literally create for yourself, but you've got to be willing to dig in and do the research and find out what's working today and where there are some gaps out there, and go and fill the gap and provide a service that people will pay handsomely for.
Many times you're not in it alone. You have to take the steps, you have to go in the direction, but there's people out there doing it.
Yeah.
And people out there doing it, they hold out their hand. They're like, come on, go invest in those people. Right.
Well, I've never for the life of me understood how anybody can stay in a traditional job and pay, make 100 grand or 200 grand in a year, and then have to pay 40-50% taxes. I mean, that's the insanity of it all. I personally don't know why most people wouldn't at the very least have a distributorship or some kind of situation where they've got at least some tax write-offs. My boat is a charter boat.
Yeah.
Simple as that, you know.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can do some business off it. There's lots of ways. So even having your own business and having the ability to step out, you get a lot of benefits as a result of that. I mean, every time you go to gas up your car, you're paying for that in pre-tax dollars.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to go to visit somebody across the country or across the world, well, maybe that's a business trip. I mean,
Yeah.
how does the government define what's business and what isn't?
Yeah.
This, especially these days with people working from home and so many businesses intersect with personalities, there's nothing the government can say if you're in real estate that you didn't meet somebody in Toronto that maybe that you're going to list their house when they move to Vancouver or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's huge
Creative.
benefits
Yeah.
from being brave and going into your own business,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
having a consultancy or anything like that. I mean, it's 100% legit, massive tax breaks, massive lifestyle enhancements.
You know, one of the first things Eddie and I did
Oh,
when we
so good.
transitioned many moons ago, we said, which countries do we want to visit? And
Yeah.
we marketed to those countries. Social platforms, you tag
Yep.
a couple different countries in things, like there's clients, there's meetings, there's opportunities. And like you said, it's like all encompassing of building a business that's supportive of how you want to live.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be in the wellness industry and you go, oh, I like Bali.
Yeah.
Then you go, okay, well, now I'm going to target, I'm going to go and put on a class in Bali. Now
Yeah.
all of a sudden you've got to research Bali. Maybe you got to go there 3 or 4 times over the
I mean, how
next few
terrible is
years.
that?
It's
Before
all
it turns us
legit.
full.
And
Yeah.
then, but at the same time, you're living a lifestyle that's so appropriate
Yeah.
for your wellness.
Yeah.
And that's why I always look at lifestyles and I think, well, you know, how does somebody work in the funeral director business? I don't care how much you make, I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Me too.
But then somebody working in the yachting business or in the fashion business, you know, they truly like it, or somebody in the bodybuilding business, that kind of thing. If that's your thing, like there's so many avenues within what you like to do if you dig hard enough
Yeah.
to find something that can create a result for your life.
And yeah, when you dig hard enough, absolutely. And I think there's so many instances that it's right there. It's just about taking the step. People can see it. It's like, take that step.
And then that's where I found it, because I've worked with coaches all the way through, because sometimes when you get a bit fixed in your own perspective, you don't have the ability to see things from another angle.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you can have somebody that comes on board and they say, okay, well, rather than looking at it from a 90-degree angle, why don't we look at it from 180 degrees?
Yeah.
And if you're looking at a sculpture from one angle and then you look at it from the side, it's almost like a different sculpture,
Yeah.
right? So you can see things that you couldn't see from the other perspective.
Yeah.
And that in itself creates great value for you. And at the same time can reduce the amount of time and energy and cost to get to a place where you're successful. It's not rocket science. It's really not as difficult as people make it out to be. It really isn't. You just got to
Yeah.
go and just create a vision and go.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. And I really thank you for sharing all of that. I think there's so much in there that, again, inspires and leads others. There's so many people with incredible ideas. If someone has a website, if they're trying to draw traffic, how do they contact?
Well, they can find me on juicedigital.com.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, they can find me like that, or they can contact you and you can give them mine.
I will lead you to
Contact
this
us.
man.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. You know,
Yeah.
Paul, I just want to say it's so inspiring, honest, and just, you know, just what you're doing.
Yeah.
And even now, I know Ali and I, we're doing our thing, but just hearing your story inspires me all the time, honestly.
Yeah.
And when I talk business amongst my friend, I bring you up all the time, Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, because this is like, this guy's living the life. He's done it from, like, you know, he started from the bottom, like look what he's doing now.
Yeah.
You know, he's always on his boat, checking out different islands all along the Pacific coast, you know, like,
If you
and
could,
surfing and snowboarding.
Yeah.
Come on
Yeah, yeah.
now.
if you
Yeah.
could leave our audience today with 1, 2, whatever, a couple of pieces of advice, next step, what would you say to them?
Just say to be brave with what it is that's lurking within you, because obviously to be listening to this podcast, you've got a reason to want to be better with your life. You want to have more. You're just not 100% fulfilled. And, you know, you're looking for some guidance along the way. So I would say just to keep going forward. And I would certainly say to work with you guys, because I've seen exceptional results, you know, with other people that have worked with you. And you know, you're living lifestyle as well. I mean, you guys are living a great life and not working too hard, working on the coast, got time to take care of yourself, be with friends, do things for people other than yourself. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I would just go forward. I would just move forward.
Move forward.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Paul. Genuinely appreciate you sharing your story, the inspiration, words of wisdom, and thank you for joining us on the Wealthy Entrepreneur Podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, bye now.
Thank you for joining the Wealthy Entrepreneur Podcast. Eddie and I love having you and love going on this journey with you. Don't forget to hit subscribe and don't forget to send us in any questions or topics of conversation you'd like to address. Remember, nothing is off limits and everything is all about building business and creating the lifestyle of our dreams.